You are listening to Radio Maria Canada. We now present the Health Hub, hosted by Kathy Biasi.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Health Hub. I'm Kathy Biasi, your host, and along with our producer, Alex Diaz, we would like to welcome you to our show this morning. Good morning, Alex.
Good morning, Kathy.
Everything good for you?
Yes, very much so. Thank you.
Excellent. January is coming in like a lamb. Hey? All the rain, no snow.
I know, although I heard there's going to be a lot of snow in February, so I'm enjoying the days while it's
they said there was going to be a lot of snow all winter, so things change.
Well, that's true.
Minute by minute, but skiing has been just a disaster. My son is up there now working in Blue Mountain, and it's so quiet up there. It's just the hills are just getting really, really sabotaged by all the rain. It's kind of unfortunate. Our ski season's actually gone down to 2 months tops. There's not much at all going on in December, and it's been completely washed out. When we left, we were up there a couple weeks ago. It was green. It was like spring.
That's a bit unfortunate.
It is if you like to celebrate the snow, that's for sure. But I don't mind it here. I don't mind although right around freezing with the ice is the rain is a little treacherous. That's the one thing I don't like.
Sure, yes.
But other than that, it's been pretty good to start off 2020 with the nice warmer weather.
It has been.
It has been. Today's show is live. Our number is 416-245-1534. We are on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, so do follow us. We are at the Health Hub RMC, and do feel free to email us at thh@radiomaria.ca if you have any questions, concerns, anything you'd like to chat with us about. One day, I swear I'm going to come in without any pages in front of me, because I think that I can do this off by heart, the front part of this, but I'm still a little bit.
I don't want to put a date on that, but maybe what you could do is hand me the pieces of paper.
Yeah, you can prompt me.
I could prompt you in any case. I'm sure you'll pull it off anyway, regardless.
When I have the pages in front of me, I can do it without. I just know that if I don't have them, it would be a bit of a disaster. Anyways, moving on.
Prep, beautiful.
Yeah, exactly. Please do subscribe to our podcast. We are the Health Hub. We are on iTunes, SoundCloud, and all of your favorite podcast platforms. And you can also find our podcast on the Radio Maria Canada website, which is radiomaria.ca, and on my website, which is kathybiasi.com. My website is undergoing a big transformation. So hopefully the Health Hub will look a little bit better with the new edition of my website. It's I've got some help this go around. My last website was I had some help setting it up, but I did a lot of the inputting and stuff myself.
Uploading yourself. That's
right.
Yeah,
my goodness. Yeah. And unless you're a professional in this area, I mean, I just did what I needed to do. It really takes a
lot of time to develop something that is informative, eye-catching, and dynamic, right? That's what you want from a website.
It really does.
And you know, that are thinking about that 24/7. So
exactly.
If you're able to, then you might as well
get somebody to help. But it's not a cheap venture, let me tell you. To get a website done and redone, I mean, I've pretty much brought over most things, but
even I have a personal website. I don't have anybody managing it other than myself, and the amount of time needed just from a creativity point of view.
Yeah, and then if you're working with somebody, they need to get into your head.
Yeah.
Because, I had a first draft of it, and it was, it was not my way of reflecting what I do.
Right.
So, it's a bit of a back and forth and a bit of a back and forth, but technology is beautiful in some ways, but it's, it's time consuming.
Well, good luck with your new
Thank you.
I'll
let you all know when it launches. I don't know how soon that will be, but it's a work in progress, like everything
Very
else with
exciting.
me, with everything else. As with some of the things that I talk about, this has come from an experience and experience that we all share. And I thought, you know what, I'm just going to look that up and talk about it on the show. That lovely time between lunch and dinner when your tummy starts to grumble, or if you're doing the timed eating, you finished eating at 7 o'clock and around 10 o'clock you get the tummy grumbles, and I got to thinking, why does our tummy grumble? Mm-hmm. And of course, when I looked for the answers, it makes a lot of sense. Some of these questions we just take for granted and as a sign of hunger, but I'm going to come and telling you that it's not actually a sign of hunger. So let's go through this. So we all have grumbles and gurgles, and we always feel that in a quiet room, ours is the only tummy that makes noise. Of course, there's many embarrassing situations where the room is quiet. No, it happens to everybody. But the
Just
noise.
hopefully it doesn't happen on radio.
Well, hopefully your microphone's up high enough, so unless your tummy really has some talking to you to do. But it's something that we all have, and the noise that you're hearing is coming not only from your stomach but also from your small intestine, and actually your system makes noises all of the time. And as the food gets pushed and pulled through your digestive system, and the food gets broken down, what happens is your microbiome gets involved, and through all these processes, gas is formed and air gets into the chyme, and as that's getting through your small and large intestine, the food is accumulating some air and gases. And so what you're hearing is the sounds that these gases and air makes. But when you have food in your stomach and in your system, the food will absorb some of the sound. So we always have, because, it takes, I'll get into the digestive process just a touch. It takes about 2 days for food to get digested from the stomach in through the small intestine, through the colon and out. So we're, obviously have food in all the time, but varying amounts. So the food acts as sort of like those buffers, and I guess the sound room here, to buffer some of the sounds. These sounds are always ongoing. Soundproofing, that's exactly it. Yep. So these sounds are always going on, but as the foods tends to get filtered through, there's no sound buffering. So these sounds are actually heard more. Mm-hmm. And these, of course, when there's less food in our system and we have the grumbling, we assume that it's because we're hungry, but it's not. Okay, so do you follow me along with that? We're always grumbling. It's the food that buffers the sound. And I think psychologically we've just associated more of a sound with an emptier tummy and the food signals. But as I was saying, it takes about 6 to 8 hours for the food to pass through your stomach and into the small intestine, and then it enters the large intestine for further digestion and absorption and elimination of water. And it pretty much takes 36 to 42 hours for the stomach to, or the system to digest all of its food. So there's always something going on. There's always noises that are going to be gurgling and being made. And just now know that it's not because you're hungry. It's because your system is letting you know that things are chugging along. So there you go. It's my little talking point for everybody now, and they can go and wow somebody else as I was wowed when I figured this out. Our guest today is a returning guest, one of my favorite guests, Sean Swarner. Sean was voted one of the world's top 8 most inspirational people of all time, receiving countless awards alongside such distinguished individuals as Archbishop Desmond Tutu, and climbing to the summit of the highest points on all 7 continents. Sean has reached millions during his travels and speeches around the globe. He is not only the first, but only person in history to have accomplished his amazing feats, and is constantly breaking through defined human limitation, redefining the way the world views success. And miraculously, he has done everything after receiving a prognosis of 14 days to live, having survived a medically-induced coma for nearly a year, and with only 1 functioning lung. Sean is author of Keep Climbing. He is president and CEO of Swarner Expeditions and is the co-founder of the CancerClimber Association. We are going to talk today about cancer survivors needing support. This is a much needed area excuse me, in the area of cancer care. We are very devoid in this area. And Sean is a cancer survivor, and I am a cancer survivor, so we can talk pointedly to this this specific area. So what Sean is trying to do, and what he is doing, is he is reaching out to cancer survivors. We have a unique set of issues that we need to deal with, and it's through really nobody's fault that cancer survivors sort of fall off the radar after treatment is done in the medical area. But Sean is working hard to fill this. And we're going to talk about some of the very unique needs of cancer survivors and how he is bridging that gap and making transition from patient to civilian for cancer survivors. So we are going to talk about what survivors need and what needs to be included in a standard cancer care protocol, what areas specifically in cancer survivors need to be addressed, and how we can address this growing need of the population. It is a concern. However, it is more of a concern with a silver lining, because we are definitely seeing more and more cancer survivors. So this is a testament to integrative health, to the medical system. And because we need people like Sean, again, this is the silver lining that we have more cancer survivors, therefore creating this need. So a happier picture than it was many years ago. So after our break, we will be talking with Sean.
Staring at a stop sign, watching people drive by, T-Mac on the radio. Got so much on your mind, nothing's really going right, looking for a ray of hope. Whatever it is you may be going through, I know he's not gonna let it get the best of you. You're an overcomer. Stay in the fight till the final round. You're not going under, 'cause God is holding you right now. You might be down for a moment, feeling like it's hopeless. That's when he reminds you that you're an overcomer. You're an overcomer. Everybody's been down, hit the bottom, hit the ground. Ooh, you're not alone. Just take a breath, don't forget, hang on to his promises. He wants you to know you're an overcomer. Stay in the fight till the final round. You're not going under, 'cause God is holding you right now. You might be down for a moment, feeling like it's hopeless. That's when he reminds you that you're an overcomer.
Welcome back, everybody. Today's show is live. Please do call in. Our number is 416-245-1534. You still do have time to send in some of your questions. DM me on Twitter would be the best. Our handle on Twitter is at the Health Hub RMC, as it is on Facebook and Instagram. Sean, welcome to the show. Such a pleasure to have you back.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You just got home from some treacherous travel? Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess you'd say that. It's kind of interesting. My wife and I got married February last year, so she's Puerto Rican, and we always spend as much time as we can with her family still down on the island. Obviously, the wintertime here in Colorado or wintertime in Puerto Rico. It's a little bit nicer down there, a little bit warmer. But unfortunately, we were staying on the beach one night, and we were 7 miles from the epicenter when we got just rattled out of bed, and we just evacuated as quickly as we could. And there were rocks rolling down the side of the hills onto the road, and giant boulders that were probably half the size of a car. And it was absolutely unbelievable. And the island's still being rocked. I mean, within a week they got hit by, I want to say, 1,000 earthquakes.
Really? That's too bad. But you flew out right away, or did you stick around for a bit, or what were you doing?
Well, we couldn't change our flight, so we flew out. We got home Saturday, so we were down there in the earthquakes for about a week, and I think we're still trying to get used to the fact that the ground's not shaking here. And it's weird because when we got on the plane, and then when we actually landed in Miami, we were just standing there, and we could feel, when you're in the airport, you can feel the ground kind of shaking, the airport shaking, and, just almost like PTSD. Both of us looked at each other and said, oh, my God, it's moving. And, sitting next to somebody at the airport getting ready to board, people have this little anxious twitch in their leg where they just bounce their leg up and down. Even that would set us off sometimes.
Really? But her family's okay? Everyone was okay?
Her family's okay. Island-wide, they lost power, and then they slowly have been rebuilding the infrastructure there, and they're slowly getting power back into each one of the metropolitan cities. And for some reason, another earthquake came through this morning. I want to say it was a 5.6 or something again, and it took out power island-wide again. So they're back to ground zero, trying to rebuild.
The world is going through some things right now. Australia and Puerto Rico, it's really something. But on to the subject at hand. What I'd like you to do, Sean, is go over your history so people have the paradigm from which you are launching and where your life has trajectored. So if you could just do that for everybody and rekindle their knowledge of you.
Yeah, for sure. I depends on how far you want me to go back. I was born in 1974.
Yeah, you don't have to go that far back.
No, I think everybody at a point in their lives, they sit and they think, okay, am I alive or am I living? So my life really started living when I was diagnosed at 13 with advanced stage 4 Hodgkin's lymphoma. And I remember sitting in the hospital and the doctor coming in. I was born and raised in a super small town in Ohio called Willard, Ohio. And I remember the doctor coming, just a regular doctor, our general practitioner, and he asked Mom and Dad to step out in the hallway. And that was the first time that we actually heard of the infamous O word. And he looked at him and just said, Terry Scott, my parents' names, do you know any oncologists? And instantly the red flags went off. At 13, I didn't really understand what oncology was. I didn't understand and truly grasp the concept of what cancer meant. But I knew it was something terrible. And eventually, like I said, I was diagnosed advanced stage 4 Hodgkin's, and the doctors told my parents, hey, your firstborn son has 3 months to live. So here I am now. I'm 13 years old, on the cusp of my teen years, on just starting my life, and I now have an expiration date. So we tried to help me be as normal as possible. Whenever I had bad days, obviously I would stay home from school. And whenever I had good days, I would do as much as I possibly could. And the teachers would even call my mom and dad and say, look, there's a bug going around school. There are a lot of students that are sick, and we don't think Sean should come in today. And I think I was the only kid who was in the 8th grade who actually wanted to go to school because I was tired of being in the hospital. But eventually, I went through 10 months to a year of chemotherapy, in and out of the hospital, just doing everything I could to focus on getting well. In fact, I remember about 2 months into the treatment, I woke up and I was just sitting on the side of my bed, and I looked to my left, and on my pillow, where my head was just laying seconds before, I noticed that it was covered in hair. And I heard the idea and the concept of the potential of my hair falling out because of the chemotherapy. So I ran into the bathroom, and I just looked at my head in the mirror, thinking maybe I can comb it over, maybe I can stop it from falling out, maybe I can do something to prevent it from being bald. And I knew it was inevitable, and then went into the shower, turned on the water, and as I was sitting there washing my head, every time I brought my hands down and looked at my hands, they were covered in hair. And at that moment, I collapsed to the floor. I fell to my hands and knees. I lost it. I absolutely started tearing up, and I was crying like a little baby. And I was, at that moment, I was 60 pounds overweight. I was bald from head to toe. I was pulling chunks of hair out of the drain, crying my eyeballs out. And it was also in that same moment, and I vividly remember it, because I was thinking, what are my friends doing? At the same time that I'm in the shower, as I just described, while they're getting ready for school, I'm getting ready for school. Two completely different perspectives. My friends were worried about the latest shoes, the nicest hairstyles, being popular. I was literally worried about my life, and surviving. There were nights I went to bed not knowing if I was going to wake up the next morning. So I truly developed a completely different sense of a perspective. So eventually I was put into remission, and I was going in for a checkup about a year out from the Hodgkin. So I was 15, almost 16 years old. And I was going in for a checkup for the Hodgkin's, and that's when they found a second completely unrelated primary cancer on my right lung. This time around, they diagnosed me with a type of cancer that affects 3 out of 1 million people with a prognosis of 6%. So putting some numbers on that, if you have 100 people who are diagnosed with this illness, 94 people die. Mm-hmm. So I was diagnosed with a type of cancer that literally they told my parents, again, this time around, your son has 14 days to live. 2 weeks. I mean, my parents, I'm the firstborn son. They went through the first cancer with me. They got me better. Everybody goes through it, and as you know too, cancer is not an individual disease. So it wasn't just me going through it. It was my mom, it was my dad, it was my younger brother. And then all of a sudden we thought everything was great, everything's clear, everything's fantastic. Bam! All of a sudden now I get this second cancer. 14 days to live. So the doctors actually put me in a medically-induced coma for almost a year because the treatments were so harsh. And this time around, I'm still, from my understanding, I'm the only person in the world who's ever been diagnosed with both Hodgkin's lymphoma and Askins sarcoma, which is a branch of Ewing sarcoma. And it was absolutely horrible. I went in for 3 months of intense chemo, 1 month of radiation therapy, and then 10 or 11 more months of chemo after that. And every time I was in the hospital for the treatments, that's when the doctors put me in a medically induced coma. I honestly, except for that 1 month of radiation therapy, I don't remember being 16 years old. This time around, I lost about 60 pounds. I lost my friends, lost all my hair, lost everything. My life was on pause, and I started focusing on what I could focus on, and it wasn't focusing on not dying. It was focusing on living. I mean, if I look back at it now, in that moment when I was laying on the shower floor, and if I decided to look at life and tell myself, oh man, I don't want to die, I don't want to die, how would things be different as opposed to me looking at it and saying, I want to live, I want to survive, I want to fight? Mm-hmm. I bet you I wouldn't be here talking to you right now.
No, the perspective is completely different. And I'm sure you've said this line a million times, but you said, am I alive or am I living? And that's profound as well. Two very different perspectives. So it's not hard to understand why you're passionate about the area of cancer. cancer care and people with cancer, but why have you chosen to focus on survivorship?
That's a great question. And for a while, fast forward about 10 years after I was in remission, I was I guess I was a bum because I was in college, and then for me, college, I guess you could call it university for college. It was a $100,000 party. I had a wonderful time. Thank you, Mom and Dad. I had a blast. And then I graduated, and then I decided, okay, well, I need to do something else with my life, and I was accepted to a number of universities, and I wanted to be a psycho-oncologist. I wanted to be a psychologist for cancer patients, but I didn't help myself first. I still had issues. I didn't realize that cancer really took a toll on me because it changes who you are if you let it. And it can change you in a good way. And when I tell my friends, cancer was one of the best things that's ever happened to me, but also one of the worst things that's ever happened to me. But it's all based on perspective. And I remember going in for one of my last treatments, and the doctor said, you're in remission. And I remember everyone being so happy. My mom, my dad, my family, everybody wanted to throw a party. And I think now they ring a bell and say, hey, you're in remission. Fantastic. That's awesome. And it is. It really is. But going through the treatments, I had so much support. I had everything laid out in front of me. I knew exactly what I was doing because there was this protocol. There was this treatment plan that was dialed in. And I was just following that and doing what I was told. And then all of a sudden, hey, Sean, you're in remission. I'm like, that's fantastic. What the hell do I do now?
Exactly.
My life was literally the next day. My life was literally that day. And all of a sudden, now you're telling me, hey, go out and live your life. You have years ahead of you. And I'm thinking to myself, well, what do I do?
How do I do that?
Yeah. Exactly. I didn't even know where to begin. So I wanted to, and now after, climbing the Everest and the 7 summits, and I think I kind of did things a little backwards where my friends after college, they went and they got jobs and they worked and they got married and they had kids and they did all that stuff. And I kind of went out and I explored and I did all that stuff that I suppose that if you look at it from a normal point of view, I went out and I did all that stuff that they're doing now earlier in my life. So now that their kids are gone, now that their kids are, their kids are older, they're looking at going on adventures as opposed to working and trying to go up the hierarchy, the ladder to get higher in their office position. Now I'm thinking, okay, well, I've done what I've done and I've accomplished some amazing things, but I want to help more and I want to give back more. And I'm thinking, okay, well, I want to help people understand that cancer is not a bad thing. It's a good thing. Again, depending on your perspective, because yes, the treatments are horrible. The experience might be horrible, but if you have the proper attitude, and I think we talked about this before, and pardon my French again, but cancer sucks. Mm-hmm. However, if you have a good attitude, it sucks less. And I want people to understand that if you have the proper attitude, you can go through it and see it as a way to build yourself, and it actually made you stronger. So now I want people to look back and realize that what they've gone through can help them for the future.
Perspective is key. And, when you're first diagnosed, you were very young, but it's hard to know the mind of a child, how that impacted you. When you're an adult and you're diagnosed, mortality is the first thing that you think of. And I think we talked about this part before too. If we can get to that point where a cancer diagnosis doesn't automatically make us go to that horrible place, that's a big, big step because your immune system is impacted and your mental health is impacted. So making that perspective, having that perspective is key, because once you get in your mind, at the outset of a diagnosis that you're going to put your head down and you're going to do what you need to do to come through the other side, that does change everything. And it's not an easy thing to do. It's not an easy, I see it all the time, and it's hard for people to grab that way of thinking. So I totally understand what you're talking about. Cancer survivors, once they go through the process, as you were speaking, there is this abyss that they ring the bell and then off they go, and until people like you bring it forth, there is an issue that needs to be dealt with, and it's not just the physiology and going forward and how do you keep up with your doctor's appointment. There's this whole mental health piece that needs to be overcome. So when we get back from our break, Sean, let's discuss the unique characteristics that survivors face, or the unique challenges that survivors face, and where you're coming in to help them out. So we'll be back after this break.
Back again, can't shake them, can't make them ever fade, ever end. Am I good enough? Do I measure up? Feels like a war I can't win. But I wasn't given the spirit of fear, I was given the power of love. Everything I've been fighting against, I'm gonna lift it up. I wanna be fearless, no holding back, no backing down. Because I believe you're with me now. Bring on the unknown. Lead me and I'll go. Come set me free. God, I wanna be fearless. I want to be fearless. I want to be. These mountains, these giants will fall at a single word. In your name, in your strength, I'm more than a conqueror. The spirit of fear, I was given the power of love. The power of love. Everything I've been fighting against, I'm gonna lift it up. I wanna be fearless, no holding back, no backing down. Fearless, because I believe you're with me now. Bring on the unknown, lead me and I'll go. Come set me free. God, I wanna be fearless.
Welcome back, everybody. We're talking with Sean Swarner. Sean, we've got a couple of questions that have come in, and I'm going to try and work them through. I'll point them out to you as I read them off, but they all sort of encompass the same idea with these challenges that cancer survivors face. In your experience and in the areas that you're working on, where are these challenges most relevant, do you feel?
That's a good question. And honestly, I think the challenges are most relevant in how people perceive their cancer. And it goes to anybody in the world because everybody worries. And it's part of the human condition. The only people who don't worry are dead people. Every single person who's alive has worries. And I think what really gets into people's heads is a lot of times when they're going in for their checkup, obviously fear starts to take over. And people think, oh, it's all in my head, and I wish it would leave. and that's true. You know, I go in once a year for my checkup as well, but it's not the actual thing that people have an issue with. It's their relationship with it, because fear can be either perceived or it's real. You know, and it's great, the song that you had during the break, I won't be afraid. I mean, it just kept repeating it over and over. This is fantastic.
Thanks to Alex. He always tries to match the show to the music to the topic. He does a great job.
That was awesome. You know, and fear can be perceived or real. You know, and it is all in your head. When you go in for your checkup, people focus on, I don't want to get cancer again. I don't want to get cancer again. What people focus on is oftentimes what happens. I'm not saying that you're going to get cancer again. I don't want to say that at all. But if you're sliding on ice in your car, what you're focused on is what you're going to hit. You know, a perfect example is when I was going through my treatments, I like I said, I wasn't focused on not dying. I was focused on living. If you're walking down the street and you're telling yourself, don't trip, don't trip, don't trip, you're going to fall on your face. But if you turn it around from a different perspective and you think to yourself, stand tall, walk strong, you know, same concept, different perspective. So if people focus more on what they want as opposed to the avoidance of what they don't want, I think they could gain more control over that fear.
How do you do that? Because it's a fear, it's what's the word I'm looking for? You can't just throw it away. It's relevant, that fear. I mean, it's exactly. Not, you can't tell someone that fear is illogical. It's not illogical. How do you change your mindset?
Great. You can't control the fact that you have a checkup, and you can't control the fact that you had cancer, but you can control your relationship with it and how you react. And it's not something that happens completely overnight. It's just like, bodybuilders. How do they get big? You know, they don't go in on a Thursday and work out for 5 hours. They go in every day and work out for an hour. And that's when people need to understand that consistency is more important than intensity. It's not when you go in for the checkup, now you're going to change your thought pattern. You have 360 some other days to work on your thought patterns before that day comes. So if you start paying attention to your thought patterns throughout your day, you know, and you develop a different relationship with it, changing things that I call micro changes. So when people develop these tiny changes, one thing a day, you know, and it's society in general, I think. You know, most people when they wake up, they turn on the news. Most people when they go to bed, they turn on the news. You know, obviously they want to get caught up and know what's going on in the world. However, 99.999% of the news is negative. So you're bookending your day on a negative note. You're starting off on a negative note. You're already putting all this negative energy into your mind, into your body. You're starting your day off on a negative note. You're going to bed on a negative note. I do this every night, and this is part of the program I'm putting together. I challenge people for 3 weeks. Grab a journal. You know, whatever journal you like. If it has pink butterflies on it, fantastic. If it makes you happy, that's even better. Open it up, and every night write down 5 things that happened that day that you're grateful for. Mm-hmm. And journal about one of them. Not necessarily what it was, but how it made you feel. Because what that does, and science has proven this, it actually restructures your synaptic connections to focus on the positives and be more positive, as opposed to being programmed by the news to be negative. That way you're starting to tap into your value system. And that's what my program helps people do. I have a core values assessment to help people understand what their values are. So it's not just that one day that they go in for their checkup when they think, I need to control my thoughts. No, it's 364 days out of the year that you can control your thoughts, that you're warming up for and practicing before you get in there. You know, it's just like people who run a marathon. It's not like you could walk outside tomorrow and go run 26.2 miles. You know, you work up to it. It's the same thing with your thoughts. You slowly start paying attention, and you start making conscious decisions based on what you value most.
So something that's been popped up into mind, because when I'm working on myself and when I advise other people, you may think the impetus is wrong, and this is just from what you've said. I'm wondering your opinion on the thought process of, here's, for instance, let's just do basic things. Someone that I'm working with that is a survivor, I want them to have a good diet, I want them to exercise, and I want them to have sleep to help reduce the instance of recurrence. Is that focus incorrect in your mind? Should that be the focus to help reduce recurrence, or should that be maybe just turn that whole mindset around and be to help promote your health?
I think that's one part of a program. I think that's one part of the piece of the puzzle. I think the biggest thing is people need to know why they're doing what they're doing. And when you said that that's what you wanted for that person, which is fantastic. It's like that old saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. So you can want that person to eat healthy with every fiber of your being. But if that person isn't tapped into the same feeling, the same energy that you are, it's not going to happen. So if that person is doing it because you want them to, that person's not going to continue doing it. It's just going to be a fad that lasts for maybe 2 or 3 weeks, and then that's it. But if you can help someone tap into the reason behind things, and like I said, if they can go and understand what their core values are, I think that really, really helps people to understand what makes them tick. And when I talk about core values, I mean things like abundance, fun, fulfillment, holistic living, joy, leadership, things like that. And there are so many people in the world who want to live a level 10 life. But you can't live a level 10 life if you're not living as a level 10 person. So using those numbers, I like I said, I have a sheet here with a bunch of values on there where you go through and you can go in and just rate each one of these values. And if it doesn't mean anything to you, that's perfectly fine, because everybody's an individual and there's absolutely no judgment. We all have a different background. We all have different perspectives. So if people understand what their core values are, pick 5 or 10 of them, then they can start making decisions based on that. So if they want to, let's say they value joy at a 10, and they want to do the healthy eating. If they tap into how healthy eating makes them feel happier, that'll make them understand that they are living a more joyful life. So that way they can tap into the reason behind their doing it. I think it was Simon Sinek who talked about the why. And I think the why, going even further, is what values mean and what values are.
When I totally agree. When I don't know if you can speak to this, but what is offered at the present time? Once a cancer patient gets to the point of finishing their treatments, what can they expect? So anyone who's listening can see what you're offering versus what is given, because it's fairly one-sheetish. What the medical system does for us, sort of more of an organizational piece. Have you seen their protocol?
I've done a lot of research online, and what I did find online was all about medical histories, physical exams, healthy living habits, care plans, but not anything to do with actually helping someone move forward based on their individual values, what they actually want. And it's interesting because when people go into, and I'm not saying these aren't important, they're very important.
They are relevant.
But when people, exactly. But what's happening, I think, on a psychological level, is they're talking about their medical histories, their physical exams, care plans. They're still being tethered to their cancer, so they're still constantly being reminded of what they went through, not what they have to look forward to. Mm-hmm. So what works best for one person doesn't necessarily work best for another person. So, like I said, those are very important, but all of the quote-unquote survivorship programs I've seen were broken down into types of cancer. In all honesty, I don't care what type of cancer someone had. I care about helping someone as a person, because your cancer doesn't define who you are. You define who you are. And I've actually heard, commercials on TV and online that, and I quote, this really, really irked me, and I quote, You've been through cancer. You've had a lot of treatments. We're here to help you pick up the pieces. We can help fix this. And I was like, what? Mm-hmm. The people aren't broken. There's nothing to fix. You are not your cancer, so why should you live in fear of it? You don't want to be trapped and tethered to it because you're not defined by your past. There's absolutely nothing you can do to change it, but you can choose to change where you're going. And I think that's where the big hole in this is. There's no one there helping people move forward. All of these programs are designed on keeping people tethered to what they went through. Sometimes I don't want to be reminded of going to bed and being petrified of not waking up. I don't want to be reminded of vomiting for 36 hours straight. I want to be focused on what I want in the future. The mind doesn't know, if you look into visualization, the mind doesn't know the difference between imagination and what's real. So if you're focusing on something that you want in the future and you just constantly visualize, and I did this for Everest, the 7 summits, and everything that I've done, your mind doesn't know the difference. But if you're focusing on the cancer and you're focusing on avoiding something, it's real to you, just like going back to fear. Imagine fear versus real fear, your mind doesn't know the difference.
It's not even a nuance. It's two totally different ways of looking at things. And you've laid out really a protocol for integrative care again. You need all these pieces. And the questions that I've had from listeners, I'll give you 2 of them, for example, are all still dealing with the fear. And the one question is, I don't know how to talk to my husband about how I feel. Survivors and caregivers have their own traumas. There's no question about it. And that path to talking needs to be discussed. So again, the questions that I see coming up are about this fear. And I think what you are proposing is a change of mindset. So what would you say to someone who comes into you and says, I don't know how to talk to my support people. I'm done, but I'm not done.
Great question. And it's completely understandable she feels that way. Or he, it's completely understandable that person feels that way because of how much they value life and the relationship they have with that person. Mm-hmm. So the first thing that they would need to understand is the people who are there who supported you through those treatments are still going to be there to help support you now, especially if it's a family or loved one, because like I said earlier, cancer is not an individual disease. If that person's there through thick and thin. Like I said, I got married 11 months ago, and I'm pretty sure in there it said, until death do you part. Good times and bad times, and then you're devoted to that. But everybody's communication style is a little bit different. However, if you just bring it up and say things like, hey, I really want to talk about what's going on. Hey, what's going on? Because that person's going to show that they care about how you feel. And so many people, here's a good example. I think so many people have a different perspective on how they look at life and how they see things and how things work. They often think to themselves, once I'm in shape, I'll feel healthy. Or once I'm a survivor, I'll be happy. So many people are waiting for something outside of them to change how they feel on the inside. What they don't understand is once we feel better inside, we begin developing a different perspective. So many people might think, once this changes, and by this, something external, once this changes, I'll feel better, I'll be more confident, I'll be happier. People don't realize it's the other way around. Once you feel worthy, once you feel confident, once you feel valuable, then you'll be able to generate the happiness, joy, confidence, etc. It's not the external stuff. Somebody says, oh, when I get my new car, I'm going to be so happy. No, you're happy first. It starts with you. And if you want to talk to somebody about that, don't expect the other person to make you feel happy. Start within you first, work on you first, and then start expressing that to others. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense because, again, you were a child when you went through this. As an adult, I shouldn't say as an adult, and I shouldn't generalize. I felt by the time I got through my process, I was tired of being a burden, and I was tired of having people look at me differently. I was tired of going to the doctor for a cold and getting a tip-to-toe exam. And I felt for a while that it was like, this is never, ever going to stop. And I think what you're saying is we got to repair ourselves. And I think it's the most important part of prevention and, fighting back recurrence and is repairing ourselves, bar none. Like when we're talking about treatments and everything, the medical system is it's a must, in my opinion. You need to be integrative. But when it comes to this prevention phase, and this is why I think, and the survivorship phase, and this is why I think that there's such a cliff, is that to me, the number one priority is getting your emotions and your mindset back in place. And this is where you're coming on your white horse to help people, because I think it is absolute number one key. I really, really do. I believe that with all my heart.
I absolutely agree. And I'm glad you said, as an adult, they change it. Like, this is how I felt, because everybody, again, with what we're talking about, there is no judgment. Everybody has a completely different perspective. Mm-hmm. Yes, we have this common background. We've all been through something horrible. We've all been through traumatic. We've all been through something that can definitely change how we feel. But I think if people don't realize that if they keep doing the same thing, expecting different results, I mean, Einstein defined that as insanity. Once people start developing a new relationship to the worry, to that thing, to the cancer, it's going to, if they don't develop a new perspective, it's going to continue having over and over and over again. And not just with your checkup, but any worry, mm-hmm. any cough, any sniffle, any sore throat. Because I've felt my lymph node before, and when I was younger, I was like, oh my God, I have cancer. Mm-hmm. No. Stop those thoughts the instant you recognize they're coming through. If you don't develop a different relationship to that worry, it's a cycle. It's just going to continue happening over and over and over again. And it goes back to different challenges. Like I said, I'm developing a program, and I take it back. It's not a program, because programs are full of things that other people put together for you. These are a series of challenges to help people get through what they're going through and help them develop a different perspective. So that way they can develop a different relationship to that worry, to that cancer, to life.
And Sean, when is so you're not finished yet? When do you expect this to be ready for people? Because it definitely is something that I will be promoting.
I appreciate it. I want to have the whole thing ready to go by the end of this month, but people can go to, it's actually called stepupaftercancer.com. They can go there and sign up, and I'll send them everything once it's ready to go. And I believe on there it's and if it's not, send me an email through there, and I'll send you the values assessment tool, so you can take it and find out what your values are.
Okay, terrific. Sean, again, another great show. Thank you so much for taking the time and sharing your wisdom with us. It's very much appreciated.
I appreciate it too, but at the same time, I'm constantly learning from you. I'm constantly learning from others, and the teachers, the student, and the student's the teacher. Let's help each other and support everyone in the cancer family.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much for being on the show, and everybody, we will talk to you next week on the Health Hub.
You have been listening to The Health Hub,